All right, in this little lesson, we are going to just do a quick review of how to do calculations with sig figs. So the majority, if not all of the rest of the units are going to require when you do calculations in order to round your answers to correct significant figures. So you won't really probably ever be told in the question, make sure you're using significant figures. It's just assumed that's what you're going to use for rounding answers. So from here on out, basically, unless you're told otherwise, you will always use significant figure rules for calculations whenever you're looking to round your answer. So there's two different sets of rules. The one in this tutorial is going to be when you're multiplying and dividing. So very simply, as you should have read, whenever you're multiplying and dividing, your answer can only have as many sig figs as the measurement in the problem with the least number of sig figs. So the examples that we're going to do, I just grabbed from the text. It's under the measurement, uncertainty, accuracy, and precision topic. So in this first example, we have two numbers or two measurements that we are multiplying. So the first thing I would do is count up the number of sig figs I see in the first number. We know based on our rules that this first number has 4 sig figs, and my second number has 2 sig figs. Now, whenever you go to put this number in your calculator and do that problem, you're going to find you get a really long answer. So this is what the calculator is going to give you. Whenever you're going to round your sig figs, like it says in the question or the problem up here, you always, when you're multiplying or dividing, go with the least number of sig figs. So if I'm comparing 4 and 2, 2 is the least number, so my final answer has to be rounded to 2 sig figs. And this has way more than 2 sig figs. So how do I round to 2 sig figs? Well, we have to use our sig fig rules. So in this number, since a decimal point is present, I'm going to start counting those 2 sig figs from the Pacific side of the number. Remember, I would only count beginning zeros, the only thing I wouldn't count are beginning zeros, which there are none. So I would count 1, 2, and the rest drop off. So my final answer for this would be 4.1 centimeters squared. Okay. For the second example, these ones are in scientific notation. Don't let that trip you up. You ignore the scientific notation piece for as far as counting sig figs. So this first number is going to have 3. The second number is going to have 2. Now, depending upon how you put this in your calculator, there might be a couple different answers that you get. Some of your answers might be given to you automatically in scientific notation. Some might not. In this case, I'll just write it out what probably most of you would see on your calculators if you did this calculation. So quite a lot of numbers. So what we're going to do is go ahead and I could rewrite that in scientific notation, which is going to be 4.16620 times 10 to the, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so this base number here can only have 2 significant figures. Decimal point present, start counting from the Pacific side of the number. 1, 2, this all gets dropped off. However, the number 6, before it gets dropped off, does round the 1 up to a 2. So we would have 4.2 times 10 to the 6th. Okay, so that's the only thing you gotta watch before it drops off. If that is a 5 or higher, it will always round up the number that you're keeping. If it's 4 or lower, it won't affect it. And then for the last example, I grabbed this example, it's number 4. Under that topic, it's the one that's in regards to the bathtub, and you're given the dimensions of the bathtub and asked for the volume in liters. So in order to find the volume, we have to take length times width times height. So we'll take the 13.44 multiplied by the 5.920, sorry, not yet, and multiplied by the 2.54. Okay, whenever I do that, I'm going to count. I have 4 sig figs, 1, 2, 3, 4 sig figs, and 3 sig figs. So my final answer can only have 3 sig figs. Again, remember, because it's always going to be your lowest number of sig figs is what your final answer, the maximum, can be. So whenever you go ahead and you plug that in your calculator, you're going to get a huge number. And we need to figure out, again, how to do that to 3 sig figs. A decimal point is present. I'm going to start counting from the Pacific side. 1, 2, 3. This all gets dropped off. So 202 cubic decimeters. And one of the conversion factors you should know is that a decimeter cubed is equal to a liter. So if you have 202 decimeters cubed, that's the same thing as 202 liters. Okay, so that's that one.